Lieutenant Sarah Chen entered the shared shower room at the Navy base, her body aching from the long day of hard exercises. Water streamed down and thick steam filled the air as other recruits washed away the sweat and grime from their workouts. Sarah kept her eyes on the floor, wanting only to finish cleaning up and leave right away. The very second she arrived, the quiet talk started up. Three women standing far away stopped talking and stared at her with open dislike on their faces. Sarah was used to these glares, the hushed insults, and the silent treatment she got from many people in her class. At 5 feet 4 inches and thin, she did not look like the powerful Navy SEAL trainee most expected. "Well, look who finally came," mumbled Jessica Torres, a tall, fair-haired woman who had always insisted Sarah did not fit into their special training. "I still don't get why they let a person like that start SEAL training. This isn't some help center." Sarah just kept washing her hair, acting as if the words never reached her ears. She had learned a long time ago that answering every mean comment would only create more trouble. Her plan was simple: let her abilities speak for themselves. "Honestly, just look at her," continued Maria Rodriguez, who stood with her arms crossed, clearly not trying to keep her voice down. "She's barely bigger than my little sister. How is she supposed to carry a hurt teammate? How will she manage the heavy demands of real fighting?" The third woman, Amanda Davis, gave a firm nod in agreement. "It's more than just size, though. It's about belonging here. This program has high standards for a good reason. When you lower those standards just to seem fair, you put everyone else in danger." Sarah turned off her shower and grabbed her towel. The insults hurt her more than she would ever admit, but she had heard different versions of them throughout her entire time in the military. As one of the few women trying to pass Navy SEAL training, she faced close judgment and sharp words that the men around her never experienced. "Hey, Chen," Jessica called out, her voice sickly sweet. "Maybe you should think about moving to a different program, something that fits your skills better. I heard the Navy needs more people to help with office paperwork." This suggestion caused the other two women to snicker loudly. Sarah wrapped her towel around herself and finally looked up, meeting Jessica's eyes straight on. For a moment, the shower room went silent, broken only by the sound of water running. "I appreciate your deep concern," Sarah said calmly, her voice steady despite the growing anger inside her heart. "But I am exactly where I need to be right now." Jessica rolled her eyes wildly. "Sure, tell me this. What makes you think you can handle missions that have broken strong men twice your size? Why do you think you belong here?" Sarah thought about her answer carefully. She could have talked about her past combat work, her special skills training, or the secret missions she had already finished. Instead, she simply replied, "I guess we will find out during the training, won't we?" "Training is easy," Maria cut in. "But real combat is totally different. When the bullets are flying and people's lives are truly at risk, do you honestly think your squad will trust someone who looks like she should be teaching kids?" The insults kept coming, each one aimed at wearing down Sarah's courage and strong will. The three women seemed to feed off each other's energy, making their comments sharper and more unkindly personal. "I bet she's only here because of some fairness rule," Amanda said with a laugh. The Navy probably had to check a box for having female trainees, so they grabbed the first woman who could do a few push-ups. Sarah finished drying herself and started putting on her uniform. She moved with clear purpose, refusing to let their words rush her or show any sign of the frustration building up inside her. "You know what the worst part is?" Jessica went on, enjoying her top. "When she fails out, and she absolutely will fail out, she'll probably blame it on unfair treatment or gender bias. She'll never admit that she simply wasn't good enough." The locker room had become busy now, with more women coming and going. Since the daytime work was done, some glanced curiously at the fight, while others plainly chose to ignore it. Sarah noticed that nobody spoke up to defend her, though she hadn't expected them to. In this world, keeping quiet and staying out of trouble was often the safest choice for survival. "I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking," Maria added, raising her voice a little to make sure her words reached the other women nearby. "We all know she shouldn't be here. It's nothing personal. It's just the truth." Sarah laced up her boots and stood to face the three women fully. She was certainly smaller than all of them and looked younger, even though she was 28 years old. Her Asian features and quiet manner had led many people throughout her life to guess incorrectly about her true abilities. "You seem to know a lot about what everyone else is thinking," Sarah said, slinging her gym bag over her shoulder. "But maybe you should spend more time focusing on how well you perform instead of worrying about me." Jessica stepped closer, invading Sarah's personal space. "My performance? I've been the best at every training drill since we began. I've never failed a strength test or missed a target at the shooting range. Can you say the same?" Sarah looked straight up at the taller woman, without backing down. "I can say that I'm still here, just like you are. That should tell you everything you need to know. It tells me that the instructors are going easy on you," Jessica shot back. "But that won't last forever. Eventually, they'll have to judge you by the same standards as everyone else, and when that happens, you'll be gone. The tension in the shower room was now heavy and real. Other women had stopped their talks to watch the confrontation happen. Sarah could feel dozens of eyes on her, waiting to see how she would react to these increasingly harsh challenges. Instead of making the situation worse, Sarah simply gave a brief nod and said, "I guess we'll see." She turned and walked toward the exit, leaving the three women standing in the misty shower area, their voices still following her as she left. "That's right, run away," Jessica called after her. "Just like you'll run away from this whole program when it gets too tough." Sarah stepped into the hallway and took a deep, slow breath. Tomorrow would bring fresh trials, new tests, and surely more arguments with her fellow trainees, but she had faced much worse situations before, and she knew she would overcome these too. What her critics didn't realize, what none of them even guessed, was that Lieutenant Sarah Chen held secrets that would change everything they thought they knew about her. The next morning brought yet another very hard day of training exercises. Sarah arrived at the training center before the sun came up, as she always did, and began her private warm-up routine. The ocean air was clean and cold, and a thick fog rolled in from the nearby sea, making the naval base feel strange and unreal. As the other trainees started to arrive, Sarah heard the familiar quiet talk and saw the quick side glances. News of yesterday's shower fight had spread quickly, as gossip always did in the tight living areas of military training centers. She had become a target for trouble, though she had never asked for any attention. "Attention," barked Chief Petty Officer Morrison, a tough, older soldier whose voice was strong enough to cut through solid steel. "Today's exercise will test how well you can work together under intense pressure. You will be placed into 6-person squads, and each squad must complete a set of obstacles while carrying a wounded teammate." Sarah listened closely as Morrison laid out the rules. One member of each team would pretend to be an injured soldier who couldn't walk. The other 5 would have to carry that person through a difficult obstacle course that involved climbing ropes, scaling walls, swimming underwater, and precise shooting practice. The team with the fastest final time would earn leave for the weekend. "Squad assignments are posted on the board," Morrison announced. "Learn your teammates' names because their survival depends on you and yours depends on them." Sarah walked over to check the list, her heart sinking as she read the names placed beside her. She had been put on a team with Jessica Torres, Maria Rodriguez, and Amanda Davis, the very 3 women who had been so mean to her in the showers. The 2 remaining members were women she barely knew, Lisa Park and Rachel Thompson, both of whom had remained uninvolved in previous conflict. Jessica saw the assignments at the same time and rolled her eyes in an over-the-top manner. "Great," she said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Looks like we got stuck with the weakest link." "Don't worry," Maria added with a slight smile. "When she slows us down, we'll just leave her behind. That's what would truly happen in a real fight. Anyway." Rachel Thompson, a quiet woman from far away, looked uneasy because of the unfriendly comments, but she didn't say anything. Lisa Park, meanwhile, seemed more focused on studying the tough obstacle course than getting involved in the drama. Chief Morrison blew his whistle, and the teams moved quickly to their starting point. Sarah noticed that their team had been assigned the hardest version of the course, which included an extra section underwater and longer distances for carrying the weight. "All right, listen up," Jessica said, quickly taking charge of the group herself. "Rodriguez, you'll be our injured soldier since you're the lightest one here. Park and Thompson, you take the front positions for carrying. Davis and I will handle the middle part. Chen," she paused dramatically, "you can follow at the rear and try very hard not to mess up our progress." Sarah said nothing, but Lisa Park spoke up. "Shouldn't we discuss a plan first? This course looks extremely difficult, and we need everyone working together." Amanda Davis shook her head firmly. "The plan is simple. The 5 of us will do the heavy lifting, and Chen will try to keep pace. If she can't handle it, she should quit right now and save us all the shame." As they got ready for the exercise, Sarah watched the other teams figuring out their strategies. She spotted small details that her teammates missed easily: the best places to grip on the climbing wall, the perfect angle for climbing the rope, and the most energy-saving positions for the underwater part. Years of special training had taught her to quickly and fully understand tactical situations. When Morrison's whistle signaled the start, Jessica's team began with confidence. They easily handled the first obstacle, carrying Maria over several wooden barriers. Their self-assurance grew as they kept up a strong speed through the rope climbing section. But their first major problem appeared at the wall scaling obstacle. The wooden wall stood 12 feet high and required the team to push their injured teammate to the top while climbing up behind her. Jessica had decided to be the main person lifting, but she struggled hard with Maria's body weight during the climb. "Hurry up, Torres!" Amanda shouted. "You're supposed to be stronger than this." Jessica's face turned bright red with effort and shame. "She's heavier than she looks," she grunted, almost dropping Maria as her hand slipped on the wood. Without being asked, Sarah moved instantly into position and helped hold Maria steady from below. Her help allowed Jessica to grab hold again and finish the lift successfully. Instead of thanking her, Jessica shot Sarah an irritated glance, as if accepting help from her was somehow deeply insulting. The underwater obstacle turned out to be even harder. The team had to carry Maria through a tunnel fully submerged that ran 50 feet beneath the water's surface. Each member had to hold their breath while maintaining their grip on their teammate and moving through the dark, icy water. Jessica took the lead for the underwater section, but halfway through, her lungs started to burn and her movements became shaky. Maria, who was pretending to be the injured soldier, could not help noticing that Jessica's hold on her was weakening. Fear began to set in as water entered Maria's nose and mouth. Without any delay, Sarah swam forward and took Jessica's spot, holding Maria with a grip that felt shockingly secure and strong. Her actions underwater were smooth and controlled, quite unlike the panicked struggles of the other teammates. She expertly guided the group through the rest of the dark tunnel with a perfect skill that surprised everyone present. When they finally came out on the other side, gasping and coughing, Jessica was furious. "I had it totally controlled," she insisted, though her teammates had clearly felt her failing grip. "You were drowning our teammate," Lisa Park said plainly. "Sarah saved the exercise for us." The last challenge was a precision shooting test while carrying Maria up a very steep hill. Each team member had to hit 5 targets at different distances while supporting the weight of their injured teammate. Jessica went first and missed 3 of her 5 shots, clearly still upset by her earlier failure. Maria and Amanda performed better, but still failed to hit several targets each. Lisa Park hit 4 out of 5, earning approving nods from the instructors watching. Rachel Thompson managed 3 hits, which was respectable given the tough conditions. When it was Sarah's turn, she took the rifle with quiet confidence, despite feeling physically exhausted from carrying Maria and facing the rough ground. Her shooting stance was firm and flawless. She took quick aim at the first target, a small circle 100 meters away. The shot rang out and the target fell instantly. The second shot followed fast, then the third. Every single bullet found its mark with machine-like accuracy. By the time she fired her 5th shot, a perfect score, the other teams had stopped their own drills to watch her perform. "Just lucky shots," Jessica mumbled under her breath, but her voice lacked any real belief. Chief Morrison approached their team as they finished the final obstacle. His face showed no emotion, which made Sarah feel tense. Throughout the exercise, she had tried hard to help her team win, while avoiding any moves that might seem like showing off. "That was an interesting performance," Morrison said, looking straight at Sarah. "Someone on this team clearly has high-level training, professional training." Jessica stood up taller, assuming the comment was meant for her. "Thank you, Chief. I've been working extremely hard to improve my abilities." Morrison's eyes never left Sarah's face. "I wasn't speaking to you, Torres." He stepped closer to Sarah, examining her with the intense focus of someone trying to solve a puzzle. "What is your real background, Chen? Before you joined this training program?" Sarah felt her teammates' stares burning into her back. This was the moment she had been dreading, when her carefully built fake identity might begin to fall apart. She had worked so hard to blend in, to appear like just another average trainee trying her best to make it through the program. "Standard military training, Chief," she replied carefully. "Nothing out of the ordinary." Morrison nodded slowly, but his expression clearly showed that he did not fully believe her answer. "Standard training does not result in shooting like that under pressure. Standard training does not teach advanced underwater movement skill." The other women on her team exchanged confused looks. They had expected Sarah to struggle badly with the physical tests, not to secretly excel at them. The difference between their low expectations and what they had just witnessed was raising very uncomfortable questions. That evening, Sarah found herself being watched closely by her fellow trainees. News had spread fast about her success during the obstacle course, and the women who had previously dismissed her were now viewing her with confusion and deep suspicion. In the dining hall, conversations went quiet when she walked in. She took her usual seat at a small corner table, hoping to eat her dinner in peace and quiet. But Jessica, Maria, and Amanda approached her quickly, with determined looks on their faces. "We need to talk," Jessica stated, sliding into the seat across from Sarah without waiting for permission. The other two stood close beside her, creating a threatening presence that drew stares from nearby tables. "About what?" Sarah asked, continuing to eat her food calmly. "About today," Maria said, leaning forward intently, about how someone who supposedly struggles with basic exercises suddenly becomes a perfect shooter and an expert underwater swimmer. That kind of change doesn't happen in one night. Amanda nodded in agreement. We've been watching you for weeks. You act like you're barely keeping up, like you're struggling just to pass the minimum requirements. But today, you performed like someone with years of special forces training. Sarah gently put down her fork and looked at each woman one by one. She had known this moment would eventually arrive. Her cover story was strong, but it could not stand up to close inspection from people who trained alongside her every single day. Maybe you just severely underestimated me, Sarah said simply. Jessica laughed, but there was no warmth or humor in the sound. Right, we underestimated the quiet little Asian girl who keeps totally to herself and never speaks about her past. Come on, Chen. We are not stupid. Who exactly are you? The question hung in the air like a direct challenge. Sarah noticed that several other trainees had moved their chairs closer to their table, pretending to be focused on their own meals while clearly listening to every single word. I'm exactly who I seem to be, Sarah replied, a Navy officer trying to successfully complete SEAL training. But you're not just any Navy officer, are you? Amanda pressed. Normal Navy officers don't shoot like that. They don't handle deep underwater operations with that high level of skill. They don't move with the tactical awareness you showed today. Sarah felt trapped completely. She had spent months carefully hiding her true background, presenting herself as an average trainee who was working hard to match the program's steep demands. But her natural instincts and training had taken over during the exercise. And now, her careful disguise was clearly beginning to fail. Look, she said, choosing her words very carefully. Everyone here has different life experiences and skills. Some people are naturally athletic. Others have prior shooting experience. Some grew up spending lots of time around water. Just because I had a good day doesn't mean there's some big secret mystery here. Maria shook her head slowly. A good day? You navigated that dark underwater tunnel like you'd been through it 100 times before. You immediately took charge of our team's safety without needing to be asked. That's not just natural talent. That is professional, high-level training. The conversation was attracting even more attention now. Other trainees had stopped pretending to ignore them and were openly watching. Sarah could see curiosity and guesswork in their faces, along with a growing understanding that they might not know their quiet teammate as well as they thought. Fine, Jessica said, changing her approach. If you're just a regular Navy officer, then tell us about your service history. Where were you stationed before this? What was your job specialty? Why is there such a huge blank space in your official biography? This was dangerous ground. Sarah's official service records had been carefully cleaned up to remove any mention of her previous classified assignments, but constant investigation might still uncover wrong details or secret information. My service record is my private business, Sarah said very firmly. Just like yours is yours, except we've all willingly shared stories about our past assignments, Amanda pointed out loudly. We've talked about our old bases, our bosses, our experiences. You have never added anything to those talks. You immediately change the topic whenever anyone asks about your background. The accusation was true, and Sarah knew it well. She had deliberately avoided sharing any personal details about her past, offering only vague answers when pressed. In a training environment where unit loyalty was built through shared pasts and mutual trust, her secrecy had made her an outsider. Rachel Thompson, who had remained quiet during most of the argument, finally spoke up. Maybe she has good reasons for keeping her background private. Not everyone wants to share their whole personal history. Jessica turned on her immediately. This isn't about simple personal privacy, Thompson. This is about honesty and trust within our special unit. How can we rely on someone who won't even tell us where she's been stationed? Because where I've been stationed doesn't matter, Sarah said, raising her voice slightly for the very first time. What truly matters is whether I can successfully do the job, whether I can be fully counted on when it truly matters most. Today proved clearly that I can. Today proved that you've been lying to us, Maria shot back quickly. You've been pretending to be someone you are not. How do we know what else you are lying about? The dining hall had grown increasingly quiet as more people became aware of the intense confrontation. Sarah could feel dozens of eyes watching her, waiting anxiously to see how she would react to the immense mounting pressure. Chief Morrison suddenly appeared at their table so fast that everyone nearby flinched, his tough, weathered face showing no emotion as he looked over the tense scene. Is there a problem happening here? He asked, his voice carrying the deep authority of someone used to instant obedience. Jessica stood up straight. She was clearly uncomfortable with the chief's presence, but still unwilling to back down now. We were just asking Chen some basic questions about her past, Chief. There are some strange contradictions in her story. Morrison's eyes moved to Sarah, studying her with the same intense look he had used during the training exercise. What kind of contradiction? Well, Amanda began, feeling braver because she thought Morrison was interested. She claims to be just a regular Navy officer, but her performance today strongly suggests much more advanced training. Specialized training that most officers simply never receive. And you find that deeply suspicious? Morrison asked. Don't you, Chief? Jessica challenged. Someone with her kind of skills should never be going through basic SEAL training. She should already be working in the field, or she should be an instructor herself. It makes absolutely no sense. Morrison nodded slowly, as if thinking over their points. You raise interesting questions, Chen. Would you like to address their concerns now? Sarah felt the full weight of everyone's attention pressing down on her. The moment of truth had arrived much sooner than she had hoped. But there was no way to avoid it now. She had to make a hard choice between keeping her current cover story and risking the exposure of secret information, or finding a way to satisfy their curiosity without revealing the full, complete truth. Chief, she said carefully, my previous assignments are classified. I am not allowed to discuss them in any detail. A ripple of quiet sound ran through the nearby tables. The word classified held special weight in military circles, suggesting involvement in highly sensitive operations or specialized units that worked outside normal channels. Jessica's eyes grew wide. What kind of regular Navy officer has secret assignments that she can't even mention out loud? Morrison held up one hand, demanding silence. That is enough questions for tonight. Torres, Rodriguez, Davis, return immediately to your tables and finish your meals. Everyone else, get back to your own conversations. The three women reluctantly moved away, but their faces showed they were far from satisfied with the partial, vague answers they had received. As the dining hall slowly returned to its normal noise level, Morrison remained standing beside Sarah's table. Walk outside with me, Chen, he said quietly. Sarah followed the chief outside into the cool evening air. The base was quiet except for the distant sound of ocean waves hitting the shore. Morrison led her to a private area near the training grounds, where they could talk alone. How long did you honestly think you could keep it a secret? He asked without warming up to the topic. Sarah's heart pounded, but she kept her outward calm. Keep what secret, Chief? Morrison offered a grim, small smile. I've been in the Navy for 23 years, Chen. I've worked with SEALs, Marines, Army Rangers, and every other special operations unit in the military. I know exactly what advanced training looks like, and I know when someone is clearly hiding their real qualifications. The game was over, and Sarah knew it fully, but she still had to be careful about how much she revealed, even to a trusted senior officer like Morris. Chief Morrison studied Sarah's face in the faint light from the nearby buildings. His expression was deeply serious but not aggressive, suggesting he was more interested in getting answers than in causing trouble for her. I quickly ran a background check on you after today's exercise, he said quietly. Most of your service record has been completely blacked out. That level of security clearance is definitely not standard for regular Navy personnel. Sarah remained silent, knowing that anything she said now could potentially expose sensitive information or break her security agreement obligations. Morrison continued, the few details that are not secret are quite interesting. Naval Academy graduate, top of your class in war studies, advanced infantry training at the Marine base, specialized language certification in Arabic and Pashto, combat mission awards that are only described as classified operations in support of joint task force activity. Each new piece of information made Sarah's situation more difficult. Morrison clearly had access to military data systems that most people couldn't reach, and he was carefully putting together her path. Chief, Sarah said carefully, I understand your curiosity, but I am not allowed to discuss my previous assignments. My presence right here in this training program has been approved through the proper military channels. I am sure that it has been, Morrison replied firmly. What I cannot figure out is why someone with your high qualifications needs to go through basic SEAL training. Unless he paused, watching her reaction closely. You are not actually here as a trainee at all. The statement hung in the air between them, like a formal accusation. Sarah felt her entire carefully built cover story begin to completely fall apart. Morrison was too smart and too observant to be fooled by vague answers and sidesteps. What exactly are you suggesting, Chief? I am suggesting that Lieutenant Sarah Chen is not truly a trainee. I am suggesting that someone high up has placed a very experienced operator in this program for reasons that have nothing to do with learning. Sarah's mind raced through possible replies. Denial would be pointless at this stage of the game, but confirmation could expose a classified operation and potentially endanger other secret personnel. Even if your theory were completely correct, she said slowly, what would you expect me to do about it? I would expect you to trust me with enough information to ensure the safety and effectiveness of my entire training program, Morrison replied quickly. I currently have 18 trainees under my direct supervision, and if one of them is here under false pretenses, I absolutely need to know why. Before Sarah could respond with anything, the sound of approaching footsteps abruptly interrupted their conversation. Three figures quickly emerged from the deep shadows near the training facility. Jessica, Maria, and Amanda. They had clearly been following and listening closely to the conversation. Well, Jessica said with a triumphant, nasty smile. Looks like we were absolutely right to be suspicious. You're not really a trainee, are you, Chen? You're some kind of spy or investigator. Maria nodded eagerly, agreeing instantly. That explains every single thing. The incredible shooting skills, the deep underwater expertise, the secret classified background. You're here to spy on us, to carefully check our performance for some superior officers. Amanda stepped forward aggressively, her posture threatening. What kind of secret reports have you been writing about us? What lies have you been telling your commander? Chief Morrison turned sharply to face the three women, his expression dark with immediate anger. You were explicitly ordered to return to your living quarters. Following a senior officer and listening in on a private conversation is a severe breaking of military rules. With all due respect, Chief, Jessica said, although her tone suggested very little actual respect. We have a right to know if someone in our unit is working under a fake identity. How can we possibly trust someone who has been lying to us since the first day? The confrontation was quickly spinning totally out of control, and Sarah realized she had to make a tough decision immediately. Continuing to keep her cover story was no longer workable, but revealing too much could put operational security at risk and potentially cause deaths. You truly want the truth? Sarah said, her voice now carrying a sharp new tone of authority that immediately made everyone stop talking. The truth is that you three do not have the proper security clearance for the truth. The truth is classified at secret levels you don't even know exist. Jessica laughed mockingly. Right. Everything about you is so secret and important. Give me a break, Chen. You're probably just some paperwork clerk who got lucky during today's simple exercise. Sarah looked at each woman in turn, then quickly at Chief Morrison. She made a swift, firm decision that would change everything immediately. Chief, she said formally, I request official permission to make a secure phone call right now to verify my authorization to provide additional necessary information. Morrison nodded slowly, accepting her request. Granted, he said. Use my office phone. The encrypted line is already activated. As they walked quickly toward the chief's office with the three suspicious trainees following close behind at a distance, Sarah's mind was already planning exactly what she would tell her contact. The situation had become much worse, beyond her ability to manage through clever misdirection and secrecy alone. In Morrison's office, Sarah quickly dialed a number she knew by heart and waited for the encrypted connection to establish fully. When a voice answered on the other end, she immediately gave a series of security authentication codes and briefly explained the urgent situation. Understood, the voice replied after a moment of silence. Authorization granted for limited disclosure only. Maintain operational security protocols at all costs. Sarah quickly hung up the phone and turned to face the assembled group. Morrison sat quietly behind his large desk while Jessica, Maria, and Amanda stood close to the door, their faces showing a mix of curiosity and lingering defiance. All right, Sarah began, choosing her words with extreme care. I am now authorized to tell you that I am not a trainee in the normal, traditional sense. I am here on a secret, classified assignment that requires me to keep a very low profile while carefully observing this training program. Jessica's eyes instantly lit up with a feeling of being proven right. I knew it. You are a spy. You've been watching us, checking us, reporting back on our performance. Not exactly, Sarah replied calmly. My assignment has absolutely nothing to do with checking trainee performance. I am here because high-level intelligence suggests that someone within this program may have been compromised by foreign enemy agents. The statement hit the room instantly like a physical blow. Morrison leaned sharply forward in his chair, his expression suddenly becoming deadly serious. The three trainees looked at each other with rapidly growing alarm and fear. Compromised how? Morrison asked in a low voice. We have strong reason to believe that secret information about SEAL training methods, mission procedures, and personnel identities has been intentionally leaked to hostile organizations. The source of this leak appears to be coming from right here within this training facility. Maria's face had gone completely pale with shock. You actually think one of us is a traitor? I think someone with access to this facility has been willingly providing information to people who should not have it, Sarah clarified carefully. That person could be a trainee, an instructor, support staff, or anyone else with regular access to sensitive information. Amanda shook her head hard in disbelief. This is completely insane. We are all loyal Americans. We are training hard to serve our country, not betray it. I am sure that is true for the majority of people here, Sarah replied evenly. But my job is to find the one exception. Chief Morrison quickly stood up from his desk. How long have you been actively investigating this potential security breach? 3 months, Sarah answered. Since before this specific training cycle even began. Jessica's expression had instantly changed from feeling successful to intense anger. 3 months of complete lies and deception. 3 months of pretending to be our teammate while you were actually secretly investigating us as potential traitors. 3 months of doing my difficult job, Sarah corrected her immediately. The very same job that protects the lives of every SEAL who goes into combat with the vital knowledge that their methods and identities haven't been betrayed. The office fell silent as the shocking implications of her revelation fully sank in. Each person now viewed their recent interactions and relationships through a completely new lens, wondering what Sarah had observed and what dark conclusions she might have drawn in secret. The tension in Chief Morrison's office was heavy and suffocating. Jessica nervously paced back and forth, her face flushed red with a mixture of anger and deep humiliation. Maria sat down heavily in a chair, staring blankly at Sarah with a painful mixture of shock and betrayal. Amanda stood frozen still near the door, as if she couldn't decide whether to stay put or immediately run away. So all this time, Jessica said, her voice shaking badly with strong emotion. While we were treating you like a completely useless, incompetent teammate, you were actually some kind of secret agent investigating us for treason. Sarah remained outwardly calm, even though she could clearly see the hurt and confusion etched deeply onto the women's face. I was simply doing my job, nothing more, nothing less than that. Your job was to constantly spy on us, Maria loudly exploded, jumping up quickly from her chair. To pretend to be our friend while you were actually secretly searching for evidence that we are enemies of our own country. My job was to successfully identify a security leak that could get many American soldiers killed, Sarah replied firmly. If that fact makes you deeply uncomfortable, then maybe you should ask yourselves exactly why. Chief Morrison quickly held up a hand, demanding immediate silence. Enough. Rodriguez, sit down now. Torres, stop pacing. We urgently need to discuss this entire situation rationally. Amanda finally found her voice, though it was shaky. How do we even know she's telling us the truth right now? She's been actively lying to us for 3 months straight. Why should we believe anything she says at all? Because, Morrison said slowly, some very strange things are starting to make perfect sense to me now. We have had several security incidents over the past few months that I personally couldn't fully explain. Training schedules being leaked to people without proper authorization, expensive equipment mysteriously going missing from secure locked areas, outside questions about very specific training methods. Sarah nodded immediately. That exactly matches the intelligence reports that first started this investigation. Jessica instantly stopped pacing and turned to face Sarah directly. Fine. Let's assume you're telling the truth about being some kind of high-level investigator. Have you successfully found your traitor yet? Do you currently suspect any of us specifically? The loaded question hung deadly in the air like a loaded weapon. Sarah looked closely at each woman, knowing that her answer could drastically change their relationships and potentially compromise her ongoing investigation. I suspect everyone, she said finally, simply. That is what a proper investigation requires me to do. But suspicion is not the same thing as cold, hard evidence, and I have not found conclusive, specific proof that any individual here is responsible for these leaks. Maria leaned forward intently in her chair. But you must have some basic idea. You've been watching us closely for months, analyzing every tiny piece of our behavior, searching for clear signs of disloyalty. What have you concluded so far? Sarah considered her response very carefully. The truth was that her investigation had already narrowed the field of suspects significantly, but she was not ready to share those conclusions just yet. I've concluded that whoever is responsible is both very careful and very smart, she said. They've been selective about exactly what information they leak and how they manage to leak it without being caught. This isn't someone acting randomly or carelessly. Chief Morrison frowned deeply. That suggests someone with specialized training and prior experience in operational security. Exactly, Sarah agreed instantly. Someone who clearly understands how security investigations work and knows precisely how to avoid detection. Amanda's eyes widened with a sudden sharp realization. Wait just a minute. If you are some kind of secret undercover investigator, what is your real military rank? What is your actual background? How do we even know that Sarah Chen is your real name? The rapid questions touched immediately on information that Sarah absolutely could not reveal, without fatally compromising not just her current assignment, but potentially her entire career and the physical safety of other secret operatives. My name is Sarah Chen, she said truthfully, without hesitation. Beyond that, the detailed specifics of my background and current assignment are classified information. Jessica laughed loudly and bitterly. Of course they are. Everything about you is classified. We are actually supposed to trust someone who refuses to even tell us her real military rank or where she truly comes from. Before Sarah could even attempt to respond, a shrill, piercing alarm began loudly blaring throughout the entire facility. Emergency lights flashed rapidly in the hallway outside Morrison's office, and the panicked sound of running footsteps echoed urgently through the building. Morrison immediately reached for his desk radio. Control, this is Chief Morrison. What is the precise nature of this emergency? The radio crackled loudly to life. Chief, we have a confirmed security breach in Building C. Someone accessed the classified training materials vault without proper authorization. Security cameras clearly show a figure wearing military fatigues, but facial identification is inconclusive. Sarah felt her blood instantly run ice cold. Building C held the most sensitive training documents, including highly detailed operational procedures that could cause absolute catastrophe if they fell into enemy hands. The extremely suspicious timing of this breach, occurring just as her cover had been completely exposed, was unsettling. When did this occur? Morrison demanded into the radio urgently. Approximately 10 minutes ago, sir. The intruder was in and out very quickly, suggesting they knew exactly what they were urgently looking for. Sarah quickly looked around the small office at the three women who had been confronting her. 10 minutes ago, they had all been in this same office together. But her months-long investigation had clearly revealed that the security breach had been ongoing for months, suggesting a pattern of carefully planned, consistent operations. Jessica immediately noticed Sarah's intense scrutiny. Don't even think about it, Chen. We have been sitting right here with you the entire time. We absolutely couldn't have been in Building C, unless, Sarah said quietly, her voice low. Someone else knew about our confrontation tonight and expertly used it as perfect cover for their final operation. The implication was painfully clear. If Sarah's cover had been exposed to more people than just those in the room, someone else might have realized that time was swiftly running out and decided to make one desperate, final attempt to steal critical information. Morrison was already moving swiftly toward the office door. All of you must stay right here. Do not leave this office until I return. He paused suddenly at the threshold and looked back directly at Sarah. That includes you, Chin. Right now, every single person is a suspect. After Morrison rushed out, the four women sat in an uncomfortable, heavy silence. The earlier heated confrontation seemed almost utterly trivial compared to the chilling reality of an active security breach happening right now on the base. This is completely insane, Maria whispered, her voice low. Someone really is actively stealing our top secrets. Amanda nodded slowly, her earlier intense hostility towards Sarah replaced entirely by rising concern. If they managed to get into the vault, what kind of critical information could they have potentially taken? Sarah knew the precise answer, but sharing it would reveal classified details about the materials stored deep inside buildings, enough to seriously jeopardize many ongoing operations, she said carefully. Jessica slumped heavily into a chair. All the fight had completely drained out of her. I simply can't believe this is actually happening right here. I mean, we knew theoretically that espionage was a clear possibility, but to have it actively occur here inside our training facility, it's probably been occurring for many months, Sarah reminded her sternly. This might just be the very first time they made a critical mistake and accidentally triggered the alarms. The radio on Morrison's desk crackled loudly again. All personnel, this is base security. We are immediately implementing full lockdown protocols now. All personnel must remain securely in their current locations until further notice is given. Military police are conducting a massive facility-wide search. Through the small office windows, Sarah could clearly see powerful searchlights sweeping rapidly across the base ground. Military police vehicles were placed at key strategic locations, and armed guards were clearly visible at every single building entrance. They're not taking any chances at all, Amanda observed quietly. They simply cannot afford to, Sarah replied firmly. If classified information has been successfully stolen, they must immediately contain the entire situation before it can be successfully transmitted off base. Maria looked at Sarah with a new dawning understanding. This is exactly what you've been trying so hard to prevent, isn't it? This exact scenario, Sarah nodded slowly. Among other things, yes. The primary goal was to successfully identify and stop the leak before it could cause massive, irreversible damage to national security. And now it might be too late, Jessica said gloomily. Defeat. Before Sarah could respond, Chief Morrison returned to the office, his expression hardened and grim. Behind him quickly followed a tall man, wearing a military police uniform, whom Sarah did not recognize at all. Ladies, Morrison announced. This is Major Williams from Base Security. He urgently needs to ask you some important questions about your exact whereabouts and activities tonight. Major Williams stepped forward, his demeanor strictly professional, but undeniably stern. I understand there was a confrontation in the dining hall earlier this evening, and that conversation continued right here in Chief Morrison's office. I need each of you to provide a detailed, accurate account of your movements tonight. As each woman recounted her version of the recent events, Sarah realized that the entire investigation had entered a new and much more dangerous phase. The security breach in Building C represented a significant escalation that strongly suggested the perpetrator was becoming desperate or perhaps suddenly careless. Chen, Major Williams said, turning his full attention to her. Chief Morrison has fully briefed me on your secret assignment here. Has anything occurred tonight that you believe might be directly relevant to your ongoing investigation? Sarah considered the important question very carefully. The timing of the security breach was certainly extremely suspicious, but she needed much more hard information before drawing any firm conclusions. The breach occurred shortly after my cover was compromised, she said directly. That could be a simple coincidence, or it could clearly indicate that someone realized their time was urgently running out. Williams nodded slowly. How many people knew about your confrontation in the dining hall? The entire dining hall knew, Jessica answered quickly before Sarah could respond. It was not exactly a private conversation. Everyone was openly watching and listening, so potentially dozens of people knew that Chen's cover had been completely blown, at least partially. Maria confirmed grimly. Major Williams made quick notes in a small leather notebook. That significantly widens the field of potential suspects, doesn't it? If the perpetrator was present in the dining hall, they might have realized that discovery was immediately imminent and decided to make one final, desperate attempt to steal critical information. Sarah felt a growing, intense sense of urgency. The security breach represented a critical escalation in the entire case, but it also provided brand new opportunities to successfully identify the culprit. The next morning brought absolute chaos to the naval training facility. Military police had strictly maintained their full lockdown throughout the long night, conducting highly thorough searches of every building, every single room, and every personal belonging on the vast base. No one had been allowed to leave the premises, and all outside communications with the external world had been completely suspended. Sarah sat quietly in Chief Morrison's office, reviewing security video footage from the previous evening on a laptop computer. Major Williams had wisely granted her full access to the investigation materials, recognizing that her months of undercover work might provide absolutely crucial insights into the security. The footage from Building C clearly showed a figure in standard military fatigues, expertly entering the classified materials vault at night. The person moved with clear confidence and decisive purpose, suggesting they were highly familiar with the facility's complex layout and security procedures. However, they had been extremely careful to avoid direct camera angles that would clearly reveal their identity. Professional work, Sarah muttered softly to herself, closely studying the figure's fluid movement. The intruder had expertly disabled 3 security cameras before managing to enter the vault area, but had unfortunately missed one backup camera that captured partial footage of the swift operation. A loud knock on the door interrupted her intense analysis. Chief Morrison entered, quickly followed by Jessica, Maria, and Amanda. All three women looked totally exhausted and incredibly stressed from their long night of interrogation and confinement. Williams urgently wants to see all of you together now, Morrison explained briefly. He believes there might be important connections between last night's sudden events that we are currently missing. Major Williams arrived just moments later, carrying a thick folder filled with investigation material. He looked just as tired as everyone else in the room, but his demeanor remained totally focused and highly professional. We've successfully made some critical progress overnight, he announced, quickly spreading various photographs and documents across Morrison's large desk. The intruder took extremely specific materials from the vault, not everything that was available there, just certain files related to overseas operational procedures and critical personnel identification protocols. Sarah leaned forward instantly to closely examine the physical evidence. The selective nature of the stolen materials clearly revealed sophisticated knowledge of exactly what information would be most highly valuable to foreign intelligence services. This wasn't random at all, she observed sternly. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for, and precisely where to find it. Jessica studied the photographs of the crime scene intently. How is that even possible? Those vaults are supposed to be accessible only to senior personnel with the highest special clearance. That's exactly what we are desperately trying to determine, Williams replied quickly. Either someone with legitimate physical access is ultimately responsible, or someone has been providing incredibly detailed information to an outside accomplice. Amanda pointed to one of the grainy security camera images. Can't you technologically enhance the footage to clearly identify the intruder? We have tried relentlessly, Williams said flatly. The image quality is far too poor, and the person was extremely careful to avoid clear facial shots. But we did manage to discover something quite interesting. He pulled out a different photograph showing an extreme close-up of the intruder's hands. Notice the gloves. They are not standard military-issue gloves. They are specialized tactical gloves that are only available through certain high-end supply channels. Sarah examined the image extremely closely. The gloves were indeed highly distinctive, featuring a particular pattern of grip surfaces that she immediately recognized from her own personal specialized equipment. Those are contractor-grade tactical gloves, she stated simply, the kind often used by special operations personnel or private military security firms. Maria looked confused and lost. What does that information tell us? It tells us that whoever stole those documents has easy access to highly specialized equipment that most basic trainees would never have, Williams explained seriously. It also strongly suggests they have previous experience with covert secret operations. The implications were deeply troubling to everyone. If the perpetrator had a background in special operations, it would clearly explain their successful ability to avoid detection for months, while systematically leaking classified information. Morrison frowned deeply as he closely studied the visual evidence. How many people at this facility would logically have access to that kind of high-end equipment? More than we would comfortably like, Sarah admitted frankly. Instructors, senior base personnel, visiting technical specialists, contractors, working on base. The list is long and extensive. Williams nodded grimly, which is precisely why we need to approach this matter systematically now. Chen, your undercover investigation has been monitoring communications and behavior patterns for months. Have you identified anyone specific who might fit this complex profile? Sarah hesitated briefly. Over the past 3 months, she had indeed narrowed her list of suspects significantly, but she had also learned to be extremely cautious about sharing preliminary conclusions without having solid, undeniable evidence. There are a few individuals whose behavior has raised specific questions, she said carefully, but I urgently need more information before I can make specific, formal accusations. Jessica leaned back hard in her chair, frustration clear on her face. More secrecy, more classified information that we are still not allowed to know. How are we supposed to help you if you refuse to tell us what you've already discovered? Before Sarah could even respond, Williams's radio suddenly crackled urgently to life. Major, this is Lieutenant Garcia at the Communications Center. We've successfully intercepted a transmission from the base that clearly appears to contain coded information. Williams grabbed his radio immediately. When precisely did this transmission occur? Approximately 15 minutes ago, sir. It was a short burst transmission on an encrypted frequency. We are urgently working to decode the message right now. The room instantly fell silent as everyone absorbed the terrifying implications. The security breach was not over at all. Someone was still actively transmitting stolen, critical information off the secure base. Garcia, can you immediately triangulate the source of the transmission? Williams demanded. Working on it, sir. The signal was very brief, but we strongly believe it originated from somewhere inside the main training complex. Williams quickly stood up and moved abruptly. Everyone must stay right here. Morrison, maintain full security on this. I am personally going to coordinate the urgent search for the transmission source. After Williams left quickly, the remaining group sat in profound, tense silence. The harsh reality of an active espionage operation happening all around them had totally shaken everyone's assumptions about basic safety and security. This is exactly like something straight out of a spy movie, Maria said quietly, frightened. Except it is genuinely happening. And we are right here in the absolute middle of it. Sarah checked her wristwatch quickly. If the perpetrator was actively transmitting information in real time, they were probably still somewhere on the base and potentially still accessible, but they were also clearly becoming increasingly desperate, which definitely made them much more dangerous now. Chen, Jessica said suddenly, her tone more respectful and serious than it had been in months. If you've been actively investigating this for 3 full months, you must have some idea who is truly responsible. Even if you don't have final proof yet, you must have strong suspicion. Sarah looked at each woman in turn, weighing the serious risks and potential benefits of sharing her preliminary conclusions now. The situation had escalated far beyond her ability to handle alone, and she badly needed their full cooperation to prevent further catastrophic damage. I do have suspicions, she admitted finally, but the person I suspect strongly is not someone any of you would ever expect. Before she could explain further, loud alarms began blaring throughout the facility once again. Suddenly, this time the sound was noticeably different. The sharp, urgent, panicked tone reserved only for the highest level of security emergencies. Morrison's radio immediately exploded with urgent, frantic communication. All units, we have successfully identified the source of the transmission. Suspect is urgently attempting to leave the base perimeter in a stolen vehicle. All personnel must immediately move to defensive positions now. Through the office windows, they could clearly see military police vehicles racing at high speed toward the distant base perimeter, their lights flashing rapidly and sirens wailing loudly. In the far distance, a large cloud of dust marked the path of someone fleeing at incredibly high speed across the desert terrain. Sarah quickly stood up, her expression grim and fixed with intense determination. The investigation is now finally over. Now it is urgently time for the truth to be fully revealed. She turned forcefully to face the 3 women who had spent months questioning her very presence and abilities. My real name is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. I am not simply just an investigator. I am the commanding officer of SEAL Team 7, and I've been actively hunting this spy for 3 months straight. The shocking revelation hit the room instantly like a strong physical blow. Jessica's mouth fell wide open in absolute shock. Maria gripped the arms of her chair so tightly her knuckles turned ghostly white. Amanda stared blankly at Sarah as if she were seeing her for the very first time. You're a SEAL, Commander, Morrison whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and profound disbelief. I've been a Navy SEAL for 8 years now, Sarah confirmed calmly. The woman you've all been actively mocking in the showers, the teammate you honestly thought was too weak and small to belong here, has successfully led more combat missions than all of you combined. And tomorrow, when this immediate crisis is finally over, I will be returning to my real job, protecting this country from the very people who actively want to destroy it. The sound of approaching military helicopters instantly filled the air as the intense pursuit of the fleeing suspect dramatically intensified. But inside Chief Morrison's office, the biggest, most shocking revelation of all had finally been fully exposed. The quiet, seemingly unassuming trainee they had repeatedly dismissed and publicly ridiculed was actually one of the most elite and successful warriors in the entire United States. The irony was absolutely perfect and total, and the clear shock on their faces told Sarah everything she urgently needed to know about the false assumptions people made based solely on appearance and gender. Tomorrow morning, there would definitely be explanations and necessary apology. Tonight, there was still a dangerous spy to quickly catch.